I do believe that things are already within you. They're already there. It's hard to have that mindset if you've been beat up and beaten down by life.
Parents are overweight, I'm going to be overweight. That thought's already there. What happens? They become overweight.
It's a little bit of like, we're going to trap you in this world and we're going to make this world so big that you won't feel like you ever need to go outside of it. And then you start saying, well, why do I put so many limiting beliefs in myself?
There's more examples that this is real than it's not.
But here's something really interesting that'll kind of blow your mind. Came on and it's Turn the Page, which is from like Bob Seger or Sagal or I'm butchering his name.
Bob Sapp.
It's from Bob Sapp. He's got a wonderful voice. I had no idea. But yeah, to show you how bad I am with that, like I don't even know that guy's name, and he's famous, and I listen to that song all the time, and I love it. But my wife's like, what version is this? Like, who's singing this? Because I really liked it a lot. It actually almost like moved me to tears just because like I got done doing this race and this song that I really like was on at the same time. And I was like, this is Waylon Jennings. She's like, this is not Waylon Jennings. She's like, they sound way different. I was like, it's Waylon Jennings. She's like, I'll let you just have this one. But she's like, it's not though. It's fine.
That's how you know when you're so bad that like the person that's like, that knows is just like, dude, whatever. It's fine.
They do sing that song, but they're very like country, like slower pace.
Okay, I see
like,
what you mean.
More honky tonk.
I'm really bad with even like, we'll say Tupac, or like I listen to a lot of Nas. Like I don't know any of the like the titles of the songs. Like I just know that like, oh, back in the day that was like track 2, but I don't know what it's called.
I hate sometimes, like Tupac is pretty distinct. Obviously Biggie is like really distinct. Eminem, 50 Cent, like there's some of these guys, but sometimes they're on an album together and you're like, who, like somebody just destroys a bar or a line or whatever. And you're like, that was so sick. But then you're not sure which guy it was.
You don't know who to give props to.
And then when you go to look it up, it's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, because it has everybody's name on it.
You're like, who said that?
Don't know.
God damn.
Let's see, it was, I forgot which album. It was Kanye's first album, but I remember I was like, dude, that's so weird. Why did he change his voice? And my buddy was like, oh no, that's a guy named Lupe Fiasco. And I'm like, oh, I thought that was Kanye West.
What a great name.
Now Lupe's dope. Yeah, he's pretty sick.
Lupe Fiasco.
Yeah. Anyways, we're rolling, so whatever you want
It's
to.
better than Mark Bell. It's a tough name.
But it's cool because it's just two syllables.
Yeah,
Mark
simple.
Bell. Yeah.
You know what's tough is when you can't yell someone's name.
That's what I was going to say.
Like I always liked Settlegate because I feel like I could yell at him.
That's pretty good.
Settlegate, take a lap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, Settlegate, what are you doing?
So my son's middle name is going to be really easy to yell because it's Drew.
There you go.
Yeah. Because like, oh, really? Nope, that's not going to work.
Drew, go clean up your room.
Yeah.
There you go.
Drew, God damn it. Yeah.
Yeah. You need to, when you try to yell someone's name, like whether it's encouraging or you're trying to be commanding, it sucks.
Yeah.
We can't yell it. All right. We're going to be talking today. Welcome to Saturday School, everybody. Saturday. Don't forget those 2 E's. Welcome to Saturday School. We're on page 43. And today we're going to be talking about manifesting, how to manifest some stuff. And I got just, I don't know, maybe a handful of things to say on this. I would also like to point out before we get deep into it that I also feel really fortunate. I say it all the time because I think it's relevant. I didn't have, at least I didn't feel like I had as many challenges as maybe some other people. I know some people grow up where they don't maybe have much going on in terms of finances when they're young, like their family just doesn't have a lot of money. And that could be really stressful within a home. And sometimes even within that home, then there's like alcoholism or drugs and things like that. So I grew up with 2 loving parents. And the reason why I always bring it up is not to discredit anything that I've ever done, but to give credit to the people that set me on the track of life, maybe a couple 100 meters ahead of some other people, or maybe a lap or 2 ahead of some other people. And I don't know what it's like to be anybody else than who I am. And I don't have any other experiences than the experiences that I had. And so I could sit here and try to tell you about how great I am, or that I manifested this all and I wrote it down, and then I became really goal-oriented and really really competitive and did all these things. And some of those things are true. But some of this is also true. The first time I did a bench press, I was a little stronger than my friends. So I was like, this is something I like. This is something I want to do. My dad bought us weights and they were in our garage. So I became interested in weights, and I didn't become interested in weights on my own necessarily. My brothers lifted weights. My brothers watched pro wrestling. I liked pro wrestling, but it also wasn't just because I liked it. It's because they liked it. Mm-hmm. So, this whole free choice thing, that's a whole nother podcast. There's a lot to discuss within something like that. But it's my belief that you want to go through life as if you do have free choice, even though I think our choices are pretty boxed. They're kind of boxed in. I'm imagining, Andrew, this is just stereotypical. I'm imagining growing up in a Mexican household. I mentioned the word boxed, but boxing, probably very popular and very, like, when you talk to uncles and cousins, you guys are probably talking about who's going to be fighting coming up next month, right? It's a big thing, right?
Yeah, no, the only time I seen literally my entire family was when there was a big boxing fight on. Holidays, people always got something going on. But if there was a big fight, we all got together.
So now, in a way, you're involved in a combat sport.
Yeah.
And is it partly because of that? Yeah, I think it plays a huge role, knowing your past, knowing that you had some insecurities, and kind of knowing the way that you grew up, where toughness was something that was everybody kind of thought they're tough, wear the hat sideways or backwards, but like everybody, at least my own experience, I know that most of us knew deep down inside that we weren't very tough, and I lifted to lift through that, right, and to get past that, and I was strong, so probably if somebody messed with me, I could probably be okay. But if somebody knew what they were doing, I wasn't going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're absolutely onto something with that, because I'm just thinking, so we just recorded an episode with Tate Fletcher, which by the time this episode comes out, that'll be coming out very soon. So be on the lookout for that thing next week, because it was incredible. But he was talking about stick fighting. Now, to me, that seems like, there's no way I would ever do that. That looks terrifying. Like, they're just literally like cavemen just whacking each other. But, imagine if I've never watched boxing and then somebody was like, oh, hey, check out this, this jiu-jitsu thing. I'd be like, what? Why would you ever? But because I've been around sports, I've been around competition, and of course I've been exposed to MMA, I've been exposed to boxing. Yeah, it does seem like it's like, oh yeah, why wouldn't I do that?
Yeah, it's kind of boxed up for you in a particular way. And there's other things too that could have been boxed up for me too. My dad worked for IBM, so I could have maybe gotten into computers and stuff. But growing up with two parents, one that was super encouraging and one that was willing to actually do a lot of the things with me and participate, being my dad, throwing football around with me, baseball and so on. I like to point some of that out because, again, I don't think that these things come out of left field, and it's something that I maybe haven't mentioned on the podcast that often. You talk about a manifestation, but you talk about something that probably lived inside your brain your entire life that you never even really thought of. Number one is weights and money always went together for me, because that's literally what was in my household. My dad converted part of our garage. Half of the garage was for his kids, and that's where we had some weights and a heavy bag. We had Olympic plates. We had a squat rack. We had a couple curl bars, a couple of dumbbells. And on the other side of that was my dad's tax practice, where he made money. So money and fitness literally went side by side. And I could sit here and tell you guys about, what an amazing entrepreneur I am and how I, did this and that with marketing of products and stuff. But that goes back to my grandfather. My grandfather was a mechanic, and he worked on the railroad. He worked on planes. He was very, very handy with his hands. He was very good with his hands. And he would take used cars and he would fix them up and he would sell them. And his name was Sheldon, just like my dad's name. And outside of his home, there was a big ass sign that everybody in the area would complain about. It said Shell Bell Auto. And then, Even back in the 70s, he would like make a t-shirt. He would make a hat. I don't even know like how they knew or he knew, or I don't know. He didn't care. He was going to figure out a way to do it, to promote. So he was an entrepreneur from, 9,000 years ago. And, he was known in that area for doing those things. My dad, later on with Bell Financial Services, I remember we had a mailbox that was a giant bell, which was like, when you're a kid, everything's embarrassing, right? But my dad made our mailbox in the shape of this giant bell, and it said Bell underneath it. And that was like our mailbox, but it was a promotion for what we had as well. And underneath that was a sign. And my dad would make pens and hats and shirts that said Bell Financial Services. So when I started Slingshot, these things, they are already sort of like imprinted into my brain somewhere. So I didn't like manifest them necessarily and grab them out of nowhere. Although some of the ideas are somewhat original, they usually have a basis from somewhere. Andrew has a clip that I'd like to share with you guys that talks a little bit about manifestation. And I talked about a bunch of stuff that so far there's really not a lot of control over. You don't control who your parents are. You don't control some of those inputs from when you're young. But as you get older, you can control the inputs and you can control the outputs, probably more so than we may give credit to. But let's check out this clip.
The secret of manifestation is expressed in one simple statement, and that encapsulates all the books that have been written on manifestation and will ever be written on manifestation. It's just one simple sentence. It says, when you pray for something, believe that it has been given or that you already have it, and then you will receive it. So the important thing is he doesn't say believe that you will receive it. He says believe that you have received it. So there the secret is hiding in that statement, believe that you have received it.
That is just such a beautiful quote. I really like that a lot. And that's the reason why I started Within You brand supplements. It's a big reason. I do believe that things are already within you. They're already there. However, to play devil's advocate against what he's saying, it's hard to have that mindset if you've been beat up and beaten down by life before, or if you grew up in a family that's a little bit more pessimistic, a little bit more negative. You didn't really grow up with seeing people take risks because people didn't have time to take risks. They couldn't take a risk because they don't have an extra $600 for if X, Y, or Z happens to their car, or their kid needs to get into a special program for school or whatever. So there's a lot of people that might not believe in themselves, but in my opinion, there's some reasons behind it. And sometimes they're physical. Let's say that you're 100 pounds overweight. Well, again, we hear this all the time about people talking about, people that are fat, they're lazy. Let's throw a 100-pound weight vest on you. Let's compromise your sleep for a while. Let's have people call you fat, and let's have you have, these negative thoughts about yourself because they've been reinforced by society. Let's have you try on a pair of pants and they don't fit. Let's have you put a shirt on and you feel like you're disgusting. You don't look good. You see yourself in the mirror every day. You try to make these changes, and it seems like you just proved to yourself over and over again that you don't know how to succeed. You'll never be able to get this going in the right direction. And so there's people that it's really tough to get them to believe in much of anything, much less that they're going to be successful with their finances. For some people, it's like, man, if they can believe in themselves enough just to go outside and take a step, that would be a really wonderful first step. And it's not a knock on those people. What I'm saying is there's a lot of people, my mother was one of them, who has just been kind of like, she was beaten down so much from life that she didn't have the confidence to take the next step. Luckily, she had enough confidence to instill confidence in me and my two brothers. And luckily, my dad did well enough financially to where we could fuck around for a while, just to be totally transparent. It didn't matter if I was successful by the time I was 19 or by the time I was 26. I had some leeway. And so I think those things are really important because I can tell you, you got to believe in yourself. You got to believe in yourself, everything you got, and you got to work hard every single day. Those things are true. They are definitely true. But how do you believe in yourself when there's not like a spark there first?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just I hit the wrong camera again. I would say that there are more examples that your thoughts, your beliefs, everything that you manifest, that that it is more true, that is real, than there's not. And the reason I give is like we can go back to an overweight person. My parents are overweight. I'm going to be overweight.
Mm-hmm.
That thought's already there. What happens? They become overweight. My parents, my grandparents were poor. My parents were poor. I know I'm going to be poor and I'm going to work a shitty job that I don't like, just like my parents.
No one in this town ever did anything great. I'm going to hang out here and, work the local factory.
Even worse, my dad went to jail. I know where I'm going to end up and what ends up happening, right? So it's like, if you don't believe that your thoughts play a role into the outcome of where you're going, just look at what's going on and look at your beliefs, what's going on right now. Look at where things are going, and look where things, like where you came from, right? Like, what were the beliefs of your parents? Did they believe the same things, and chances are they did. And this is how it all ended up. So that's why I say, like, there's more examples that this is real than it's not. One thing I did want to quickly ask you, do you think it's another thing that you were, I'll say, lucky that you got to experience your dad having a really good high paying job at IBM, and then all of a sudden it was completely taken away when he was let go?
Yeah, it was really amazing to see my dad's reaction to that. I don't know what his reaction was behind closed doors, but all I saw was he was like, okay, well, I'll just make the business that I'm already running my side hustle. I'll just make that my main hustle, and that'll be that. And that's all he did, was just shift gears. And he was into real estate stuff too already, in terms of like being a realtor and helping people get into the right homes and stuff like that. But my dad, I think, the IBM thing, I think was a real blessing, because my dad is just an amazing people person. And I didn't even think about it to this moment right now, but we talk about like monetizing things. You monetize certain things. My dad figured out a way to monetize his ability to communicate with people, and his patience, and how he likes to just help people. Mm-hmm. He figured out a way to monetize that. But if he didn't lose the job from IBM, he probably would have never really discovered his true strengths. So I think he liked working for Big Blue and liked working for the big corporate company. There was a lot of amazing things that happened from that. I remember going to these like festivals that they would put on a couple times a year, and it was free, and there was like roller coasters and like bounce houses, and it was just wild,
all kinds of food.
Yeah, all kinds of food. Everything was free. But it was a little bit of a facade, like it's a little bit of like, we're going to trap you in this world, and we're going to make this world so big that you won't feel like you ever need to go outside of it, which is kind of nice that the company did something like that. But you hear people say like, I only make $50,000 a year, but they also give me a car. They give me a car for free, people will say. They give me insurance. They give me this. They give me that. They're not giving you anything. You're earning every single thing that's ever been given to you within the confines of that job. And it's all just in an effort to try to keep you happy enough-ish so that you can continue to work. I'm an employer. I know how it works. Employees know that it sucks. They're never going to get paid what they feel they're valued. They're never going to feel that they're, not never, but a lot of times they're not going to feel appreciated. Maybe they get pats on the back the first 6 months, and then the next 6 years they don't get much pats on the back. Maybe the raises that they, it changes, over a long period of time. But yeah, my dad, switching gears, it was just like he just switched gears, and it actually ended up being a big blessing. My brother Chris was able to go to USC, an out-of-state school, which is already super expensive. Like, there's no way we would have been able to afford that. Even though my dad did do well at IBM, the tuition would have been crazy. So my brother was able to get financial aid, which haunts him probably till this day. But things worked out the way that they worked out. One of the things that we were talking about earlier was a bunch of these things that aren't necessarily all that controllable. You are always in control of your thoughts, but I do think that your thoughts can kind of get boxed in, and it can just be a little more difficult for one person to be positive versus another person for many different reasons, even just genetics. Even one person just has more serotonin than another. Maybe one person responds quite differently from a hug than another. Maybe one person responds differently from a comment, whether it be bad or good, differently than another person. But here's something really interesting that'll kind of blow your mind. We don't have control over who our parents are. But there's also a lot of shit that we don't have control over in general. Right now, as you're listening to this podcast, you're blinking, you're breathing, your heart's beating. There's all these things going on. If the Earth was just to decide to rotate slightly differently than the way that it's currently rotating, if it decided to, if the waves and the wind and anything just gets off kilter, like the degrees that it's going to be out this summer, if all that just increased, like just randomly, just off by 20 degrees, it's like that has a major impact. But a lot of these things, they're not things that we have any control over. And so therefore there's certain things that, if you can control, if you can control something, then work on controlling it and don't put so much worry into it. Just what can you control? Be more of a warrior than a warrior. And when it comes to the things that are out of your hands, like the Earth rotating, there could be a lot of things that are like that. Then if you don't feel like you have any real power within those things, then I would put that aside as well and not put it in a category of something that I really need to worry about. Like, when was the last time you were really worried about whether the sun was going to come up the next morning? You might be worried about your own health, but you weren't worried about whether the moon was going to, the moon's not going to pop up today, or the sun's not going to pop up today. I mean, maybe you don't see it because maybe there's clouds, but there's so many things that they're just happening, right? But I do think the cool thing about being a human being is we have an opportunity to really think about our thoughts and to really place our thoughts into certain categories, and then we can start to try to steer ourselves in particular directions. So when it comes to something like manifestation, we have a really wonderful opportunity to try to adhere to and tie as many things possible to particular directions that we want to go. And I didn't say the word goal on purpose because I think that goals, everyone's a little different with goals, but in my opinion and from my own experience, goals are really cool to allow to grow over time. So, I got into running maybe about 2 years ago and horrible at it. No thought of a marathon, right? No thought of a half marathon. No thought of any of that kind of stuff, but people mention it to you, and you're like, nah, right? Say it over and over again, but then you get better at it. And you're like, holy cow, I just ran 5 miles. Well, there's not going to be I don't know about running 10 miles. And then the other side of your brain says, hey, wait a second. You were just saying that about not being able to run 5 miles. And you just ran 5 miles. And that was 2 days ago. And you're fine. You're not even hurt. Feel good. So maybe you could run 6 or 7 miles? I bet you could. It's just some extra steps, right? I bet I could do that. And then you start saying, well, why do I put so many limiting beliefs on myself? When somebody asks me about a marathon, why don't I just say, yeah, I'll probably get to that. I'll probably get to that soon. And so that's what I started to kind of do. And I started to kind of think about it a little bit more. But I think one of the things that's really neat about manifesting stuff is hopefully it gives you a good grocery list of shit to do to align yourself with whatever you're trying to manifest. So this is why I think it's important. I've always used this Mario Brothers kind of reference, you don't want your jump off. You want your jump off point to be the very last little thing, so you can get as high up on that flag as you can and get as many points as possible. If you jump too early or you jump too late, if you jump too late, you're dead. If you jump too early, you have to settle for not getting that many points, right? And it's, I think it's kind of the way that life works. And I think that if you are really overreaching for a goal, that's where you can kind of end up failing. That's where you can end up falling. That's where you can end up hurting yourself. And there's nothing wrong with some of that. Like those things are natural. It's part of it, but I don't think there's any reason to overreach right away. So brush up against some greatness. Try to find people that are already doing the thing and try to communicate with them, and they'll just be so calm about it. Hey man, I was really thinking about doing this. I don't know. I've only been training for a couple months. I was thinking about doing a jujitsu. They're like, what? Really? You're going to do a contest? Holy shit, bro. You got to do, oh dude, Andrew, you got to do it. Right. And then they get all pumped and they're like, oh man, I remember my first one, this happened and that happened. I was so nervous and I just had the best time. And yeah, I lost a match, but like, man, I fucking had the best time. We went out for pizza afterwards and it was the best pizza I ever tasted because I put myself out there and I put myself on the line. It improved my training. It improved my physique. My strength got better because I was all in for a little while. And so I think when you start to have something that you're doing and you start to manifest what it is you want to do with that particular goal, over time, you're going to start to align things. And what he said in that quote there about already having it, I think this is what my mom was trying to teach me the whole time she was here. She died a couple years ago, but I really think that ultimately, when I look back on it, all she was ever trying to teach me is that, honey, you already got everything inside you that you need. I taught you this, your dad taught you that, and you learn differently than other kids. You have some things in you that are great, that are powerful. You got some skill sets that maybe need some work, but everything you need is there. Everything you need is there already. And she is the one that kind of taught me from a young age I remember telling her, like, I just see things backwards. When I look at words, sometimes they're literally backwards. Or sometimes I would write like an essay or something, and there would be like a 6 in the middle of the page or a 7 randomly when I'm writing letters. And a teacher would be like, well, why is there, I'm like, I have no recollection of writing that at all. I don't know what happened, It's just the way the brain, something is maybe a little scrambled there or something. I don't know. Maybe wires are crossed or something. But my mom said, she's like, seeing things backwards kind of cool because you can go work your way backwards from the finish. And then what did I do when I ran the Boston Marathon? I worked my way backwards from the finish. Where most people are thinking, man, that midway point's going to be tough. Those hills are going to be rough. I envisioned what it's going to look like going across the finish line. And then I rewound the tape. Well, when you rewind the tape of you already running across the finish line, there's a lot less anxiety going on because you know what the end was. Mm-hmm. Just like when you go to watch a movie, you already know the outcome. So I, rewound that and I'm like, okay, there's all these murderous hills that are coming. There's all these things. But again, if I'm just rewinding the tape, I already got past those hills. Now I'm just looking at it like, I wonder how I did on those hills. Let me back this up. Let me watch it. I get to watch the hills and say, oh shit, okay, well, we walked a couple of them. I could have ran a little harder on a couple of them, but we still got it done. And then you kind of walk your way, back all the way to the start line. And seeing it before it ever happened and being okay with that and just understanding, a lot of people advised me to walk some of those hills. And I'm grateful for it. It's almost like an angel came up on my side when I was running one random night in Davis. These ladies that are part of this like run club, they ran up alongside of me. I never run at night. I ran at night one time during the whole 20-week training block. And it wasn't like super late, but it was like 8:30 or something. And I got my headphones on and I'm running. And they're like, hey, we saw you like 2 hours ago. Like, what are you training for? Mm. We saw you running the other direction. What are you training for? And I said, oh, I'm training for the Boston Marathon. And the lady looked at me and she said, don't run the hills. And I was like, okay. She goes, there's a lot of hills there, right? I was like, I heard about the hills. And she goes, how long you been running for? I said, man, I don't know, maybe about a year, pretty consistent for about a year. She goes, don't run the hills. I was like, okay. And then she kind of gave me like another look, and she was like, you're a pretty big guy. She's like, don't run the hills. I'm like, you know what, ma'am? I'm not going to run the hills. She's like, that's great. She's like, you're going to have the most wonderful time. She's like, I ran the Boston Marathon 3 times, and it was really, really a great experience. She's like, have a great night. And she just ran off into the distance.
Disappeared.
So I was like,
whoa.
It was insane to get that advice, just to maybe, I don't know, 6 weeks before I went and ran it. And I'm grateful for it. It was incredible.
Nootropics. Every single biohacker and their mother talks about the benefits of lion's mane or alpha GPC, blah, blah, blah. We have this mix of supplement, but no one really tells you how to analyze what you actually should be trying to take or what problems you may have. That's why Andy Triana has made the Nootropics ebook now on our website at powerproject.live. Now, we've had Andy on our podcast multiple times, and he's educated us on so many different things along with nootropics. But in this ebook, he goes in depth on how to analyze what your problems may be specifically and how to utilize nootropics to help fix those issues or to help progress in certain areas. Like if you're wanting to speak better, think faster, communicate better. There's so many things he goes in depth on in this ebook, and you can get it now on our website at powerproject.live. The link's in the description along with the podcast show notes.
If somebody's been kind of getting beat up, they haven't necessarily won, we'll just say anything, or maybe they're in their minds, they're getting beat up more than they actually are. But what if they have never seen that finish line? How can they envision that and work their way backwards? Again, like, if they've never seen it, like I can't imagine what like a small town in Spain is like that I'm going to go visit one day because I've never been there. So it's hard for me to work my way back. Right. So how can somebody do that?
Yeah, I think a really good way to do that is to again, like I feel like I'm somebody that does stuff. Like if you start to do the thing that whatever the goal is that you have with a particular thing, then you start to set up a cascade of disciplines around that particular thing. So if you feel like you never really had much of a win or you got to give yourself some challenges. Maybe challenge number 1 is to go out and walk for 10,000 steps. Maybe 10,000 steps sounds pretty easy, and you can ratchet that up to 20,000 steps, 30,000 steps. At one point, still the hardest thing I've ever done in my life is to do 100,000 steps. 50 miles in a day. So you can kind of, if you set stuff up that is exponentially a little bit harder, that's what's going to build confidence in you. And the confidence will allow you to start to manifest and predict and see things that other people don't see. But that part of your brain won't operate, it won't work well until you exercise it. And you exercise it by doing stuff. It doesn't always have to be physical. Maybe you just want to start to develop but it's a skill set. Maybe you want to start to write or be a writer. Well, if you want to be a writer, you got to get to writing. You got to write. So, what's your version of doing something that's in that realm? Maybe at the moment you're like, man, I can't write for the life of me right now. Well, maybe you read, because that's like kind of part of everything too. As you're reading, I think you're learning how to write. Learning different authors' cadences and so on. Maybe you're reading about how to write. Maybe you're listening to Stephen Pressfield, or maybe you're listening to the Daily Stoic, and you dig Ryan Holiday's information. Ryan Holiday is a really prolific writer. There's a lot of people. Maybe you're listening to information about Stephen King. All these different things kind of come to mind. But for myself, when I started you're not going to get obsessed with a thing until you start to do it for a while. So you do something for a short period of time, you start exercise, start working out. You just go into the gym. One day in the gym, you go on the treadmill for 30 minutes, check out a couple of chicks that are there, and then you leave. And then maybe next time you go, you are brave enough to do some cable work, and you mess around over there, and you don't have a plan. You're not following anything in particular, but you hear people talking about lifting and exercise and how important it is. So you don't have a plan. You're not obsessed with it at all. You're just like exercising. You run into someone at the gym and they're like, hey man, you eating your protein? You're like, I don't know. And they start to explain some diet stuff to you, and they start to tell you how they eat, and you keep going to the gym. And over time it starts to build up. And then you're like, well, I'm already spending time here. Like my arms don't look great. I want to build them up a little bit more. Start exercising them a little bit harder. You read information about lifting. You learn how to kind of grow your biceps, your triceps. That guy that's there that's talking about the protein, you start asking him other questions, and he starts telling you kind of his diet, how he lays it out. Well, now your biceps are starting to get a little bit bigger. You're starting to notice some differences, and that is building tons and tons of confidence. And now you're like, wow, like I got kind of like a little bit of a spare tire here that I'd like to lose too, while I'm at it. You know, I might as well, I'm already here. I already built my arms. You already proved to yourself that you know how to make improvements, and you're already shown yourself. So now you want to start to kind of manifest what's going to come next. And the way that you would start to get into that, again, I think it all starts with a spark of confidence. That's where everything kind of stems from. So you have to figure out, how do you get that? Well, you have to get that by earning that. You can't, that's not something that, I mean, people can give you boosts of confidence, especially people that you really value that are in your life. But building confidence comes through having a better skill set. I've mentioned this many times before, but you know, how confident are you going to be if someone gets right up in your face and starts yelling at you? You motherfucker, I can't believe you, you bumped me on the sidewalk over there, and, F you, and they're just flared up and they're mad as hell. Some people will be really calm in that situation. They'll say, hey man, I'm super sorry. I must have banged into you and didn't even, and I didn't notice it, and that's wrong, and I'm sorry, you know? And then you see the guy still mad. Maybe one person might get really, really nervous, but somebody with a skill set is like, I'm going to put this guy to sleep if he tries to do anything. It's, that's it. Like, he's going to be out, or someone that knows how to box or wrestle. Like, I'm going to slam this guy, or I'm going to fucking punch this guy, or whatever it might be. But having a skill set is something that gives you confidence that people will be able to see it in you. People will be able to see it in your step. They'll be able to see it when they're communicating with you. You build that confidence, and then you start to manifest stuff. And manifestation is not some bullshit like wizard thing that you like summons. It's things that you don't necessarily have to write them down, but I have written down a lot of things that I manifested over the years, but they don't always have to be written down. They could be more like just thought of. And one of the things that I used to write down all the time was the amount of weight that I was going to lift. When I was in the shower at my house, I would write on the mirror, 900 or 1,000 or 800, depending on what lift it was and what I was trying to do. And I would just see it every day. I'd get out of the shower, I'd see it. And then when you see it, it's not a manifest of now something magical is going to happen because I said it and it's out there in the universe, and now it's going to come back to me. It only comes back to you if you put in the work. So I write 1,000 pounds down. The 1,003 was the number because it's like a particular kilo number. So you can't do 1,000. You can do like 990 something, and it's like, that's not good. So you got to do 1,003. That's the number. And you write that down, and I look at it every day. It's one thing to write it down, like when I went or as I was coming out of the shower and there's steam on the window and stuff. It's one thing just like write it down. But it's another thing to like change and to kind of get ready for the day, and then to look at it again and be like, that's what you said you're going to do. That's what you set out to do. You said you were going to do that. So now you need to go and like do shit for this particular day that shows that you care about the thing that you're trying to manifest. Because it's not just going to happen on its own. Just because you speak it into existence doesn't mean it's a thing. Although that can be helpful for you to tell yourself that you're going to be successful with that. For you to tell yourself that you're going to be safe when you run 26 miles for the first time is a really good practice. And it's really smart. But how do you be safe for running for 26 miles? You have to run. You got to exercise. You got to practice.
I was gonna ask you, like, how do you actually manifest things? Like, do you use more thought? Do you use paper? Do you use, your phone camera? That's what I've kind of been messing with lately. Just because, like, again, this unfortunately in our country in this in 2023, although it's getting more popular, this is still very foreign. This is still kind of on the weird side of things. So somebody is like, do I sit and pray to the manifestation God? Like, how do people actually like sit down and manifest things?
I think it takes some figuring. So it takes some, like, again, I don't think it has to necessarily be written down, but I've heard a lot of people really encourage people to write it down. I do believe that there is something that happens that's a little different when you actually use a pen and write it on paper. Saving stuff in the phone, I think, can be effective as well. I just don't have as much experience with that. I feel like that something happens in the brain. Like if I just screen capture something, that's cool, but I don't know how, like if I'll look back at it or if I'll think about it more than just a screenshot. I think it might take a little bit more than that. And even if I was to capture something in my phone and save the link to something that I really liked, if I didn't pair that up with some notes, I don't think I'll get the same out of it. So if you are going to try to take some notes, you think you're going to remember stuff, but you're not. You're not going to remember anything. You're not even going to remember why you put it down in the first place. You're not even going to remember why you liked it. Give it enough time. You're not even remember why it resonated with you at all. You're like, that's garbage. I don't even think that way anymore at all. So
That's true.
yeah. So put some notes next to it. I'm not saying it has to physically be written down, but that's been my experience, is that it's been helpful to physically write it down. And the way that it starts to grow and the way that it starts to turn into something is you might write down a particular goal. Like you have a contest coming up, a tournament, a fight. Well, maybe the thing for that day is, you start to set up your own. Do you have particular goals with it that you kind of know in your head, or you just want to like go do it and just like let shit happen whatever way it happens?
There's a little bit of both, and this tells you my confidence level by even saying that. But because the inputs that I'm getting from everybody is your first comp is kind of like a throwaway. Like if as long as you can stay calm, then that's good. I've told a couple people, I'm like, hey, like when I touch the mat, I've already won. Like that, I'm winning. Like I've literally won life because coming from having
That's great,
really bad debilitating back pain to competing in jiu-jitsu. I'm gonna go fight somebody else. But in my head, because of how I'm put together, again, like a little bit of a competitive spirit, I'm going in to win. And so like I've already like kind of said my thank yous. I've already done the things that like I'm going to say the night of June 17th when I win this competition, my first one. So my plan is to go in and win. The things that I'm drilling right now, those are the things that I'm playing in my head. Like, okay, a white belt's going to typically do this, so I'm going to learn how to suppress that, and this is my game. So I have my game that I'm going to go in with, and if it gets suppressed, well, guess what? I have this other game that I'm going to go to, because I'm going to leave the Stockton Arena as the 181 no-gi masters.
World champ.
I mean, not no-gi, gi masters 2 champion. That's the plan. That's what's going to happen. So even though as somebody who's never competed, that might seem like very big aspirations, but it's this belief in myself that is going to get me out of bed every day to go train, to go lift, to go running with you, which I got to ask if you're available tomorrow, but I'm not sure if you are. Putting that up there in my mind, writing it on my bathroom mirror. I got like a
Sharpie,
but the erasable one, so dry erase.
Yeah.
Writing that out. That's what's going to actually drive me to actually put myself in the right spot. Like what you said, right? Like I can't write IBJJF blue belt champion right now because I'm not even a blue belt. So there's no way I can jump from the bottom of the steps to jump over the bricks to get the flag like Mario. I have to get to the very tip of this one. So in doing that, it's going to force me, not force is not the right word, but it's going to make sure that I'm put myself in the right spot. And the right spot is on the mats every morning. It's in the gym, every other morning. And so again, big aspirations, but in doing that, I believe I am manifesting that to come true. And like I said, it is extremely motivating to kind of shoot for that, because again, everyone's like, dude, it's not about winning or losing. It's just the experience. It's the training. It's making weight, even though I don't really have to cut weight, but making sure I don't like turn into a blob. But I think about that too, because I'm like, dude, how sick is this? Like right in the middle or beginning of summer, I'm going to be in really good shape. So I'm just going to ride that throughout the whole summer. Like I'm really looking forward to that. So it's all of that, all combined into, me walking out of there with a gold medal around my neck.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly said. And I think I like the idea of like there's victory in the fact that you signed up. There's victory in getting your body physically there and stepping on the mat and having the whistle blow or the guys say start, however it works. I think that why not have multiple forms of victory? Maybe you have a couple family members that go, or a coach or some friends, and you can envision, like, regardless of what happens, that people are pumped for you. Like no matter what happens, people are going to be excited for you. Winning, I think it's fine to have to put out like a loftier goal. I think it's cool to have, I think it's cool to kind of set the bar high, because why not? Like, what's the negative of setting the bar kind of high? There's not really a negative. And here's the other side of it too. If you go and you compete, and let's just say that you get into this match and it's like the Matrix, like where there's like a scene in the Matrix where I can't remember exactly what it was, but like the two guys like meet up and they got like similar skills. Like to me, that's dope, So if you get in there and you kind of start to get into like a scrap where it's the guy's really testing you, you're really testing him. That'll make you feel so incredible. I think regardless of the actual outcome, it's like this guy does this to you, but you're able to counter it.
Yeah.
Then you do this to this guy and he fucking counters. Then you're like, fuck. But
yeah,
it would be like if you get into like a Hagler-Hearns like battle, like I'm sure like boxing fans know who won that fight. I don't even know who won that fight.
I don't either.
Those guys just smashed each other forever. And it's like one of the most famous boxing matches of all time. And coming out with a victory, you're doing all the things that you need to be doing to win. You already have all the things. You already have all the resources to be doing these things on a daily basis. So, of course, there's going to be nerves. Of course, you might just literally be really scared, and it's fine. It's fine to be like being scared is kind of great. Just like pain is a mentor, I think being scared is an awesome teacher as well, because you get to kind of walk yourself through, why am I so scared? Like, well, fuck, I guess I was pretty scared first day I walked through the doors. Hey, I wanted to maybe, I'll just forget it. Never mind. See you later. You're like, I wanted to see if I could sign up. I don't know how it works. I'm not sure what's going on. And they're like, you can start today. You're like, oh, well,
you seem really busy.
The place looks packed, And so it makes sense. It's your first time, doing it. But I think, walking yourself through, like telling yourself ahead of time, okay, here's what the day is going to look like. You're going to wake up. You're going to have that weird stomach feel of like, oh, today's fucking fight day, And then you start to walk yourself through, okay, well, how am I going to deal with that? How does my normal day start? Like, what's an optimal day for me? It's a day off of work. I get to focus in on this for a handful of hours. So I'm going to wake up. And yes, I might feel nervous, but I'm going to go through my breathing drills. They work every time. They're great. Going to take a shower, going to make a cup of coffee, like whatever the normal routine is. Not even going to think too much about it. I normally eat this way. It's not ever a problem before. When I go to class at night, I eat this in the morning and nothing happens in my stomach. And then you can kind of like walk yourself through the day, and you can kind of think about, seeing yourself with your hand being raised at the end of the day. And if for some reason that doesn't happen, you'll have another opportunity. There'll be another day, another opportunity to do it. And the outcome is amazing, because the outcome is what is going to drive your training even more. I mean, the way I see it happening, you're going to win, you're going to kick some ass, you're going to have an amazing experience, and you're just going to be more fired up to do jiu-jitsu than ever, which is a lot to say, because you're fired up about it as it is. And I think that, but even that aside, win, lose, or draw, I know like we have so much focus on win. We got to win. What did you win? Did you get a gold medal? Mm-hmm. But with that aside, it's the journey where you learn so much about yourself. You can say to yourself, man, I was scared. And when I was a kid and I was hanging out and somebody stepped to me, I was scared. And you know what? As a kid, when I was scared, I didn't do anything about it. But as an adult, I was scared and I went and I fucking did it anyway. Like that's amazing. Like that's a turnaround of a 180, 100%. I mean, I remember being in school and having a guidance counselor tell me, basically that was stupid. They were like, oh, you're, on a 4th grade reading level and you're in 10th grade or whatever the hell it was. And it's like, I already know that I have a hard time reading. I don't need any like further reinforcement, but I just didn't say anything, and as an adult, I would say, hey, you know what? Everybody's different, and I'll have to figure out something to do to make some money that has nothing to do with reading. Mm-hmm. But as a kid, you're not going to, I'm not going to say anything.
No, yeah, I had a similar thing. I remember, like, I think I was a junior, and they were like, yeah, we're going to sign you up for a continuation school. And I'm like, wait, isn't that like when like people just barely like scratch like the door, or not the door, but like the surface to get in the door to just get their GED and stuff? Like, yeah, it's kind of like that. And I'm like, well, what the fuck? Hold on, like I'm still in real school right now. But dude, yeah, what I was gonna say was fucking A. Sorry, I got a little emotional there because just thinking about like touching the mats,
Yeah,
but
that's good. What's the emotion like from? Like, what do you think it? Like, you're excited?
Oh, dude, I'm super excited. I'm super nervous. But again, just thinking about like having so many self-doubt, like so much self-doubt in myself.
It's good, man. You're what's happening, I think is you're killing off a chunk of yourself.
Yeah.
That's why
and it's fighting me right now.
That's why you're crying, because you're saying, hey man, goodbye, Andrew. Like we're gonna kill some of you.
Yeah.
And it hurts.
Yeah, it's such a weird feeling, like I'm excited, right? I'm happy that this little person is dying,
yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, okay. But what I was going to mention was like that clip that you sent about having the courage to do something, like how it's kind of jacked up that it's backwards.
Oh yeah.
Like right now I'm like, oh dude, I'm really feeling it, like I keep checking to see if somebody else has signed up yet, like, cause I was the first one in my class to sign up. So it's like everyone's checking, they're seeing my name first. And I don't know who the fuck sorry, I'm trying not to cuss. I don't know who else is out there looking at my name, like researching, seeing who I am. Thankfully, there's no like content of me out there, maybe on purpose. Yeah. But like I keep checking to see like who's going to sign up. And it's like super, like I start thinking about it and my stomach starts to kind of like turn a little bit. And it's like, oh man, I got to go poop again. Whatever that feeling is, but then you think about something else and it completely goes away. But that quote, or it was from a movie or something, right? Where the guy was telling somebody else.
Oh, it's like it was a famous actor. It was George Clooney, right?
Saying, it's like backwards. Like you don't have the courage until you do it. Then after you do it, then you get the courage. And it's like, wait, why the heck is it that way? So I'm excited for that too, because at one point, going into a commercial gym was like, oh man, I kind of had the same feeling. And then all of a sudden you go to ST and, super training, you see some killers and then you kind of get the same feeling. And then all of a sudden the commercial gym's like, oh, okay, this is pretty cool. It happened again when I walked into, Waza Jiu-Jitsu in Elk Grove, where I'm like, oh my gosh, like everybody's going to beat me up. Like this is tough. And it, so that ended up being okay. And now when I look at any gym, I'm just like, all right, yeah, this is fun. It's actually kind of boring, because that boost in courage, confidence of going to a jiu-jitsu school now makes everything else seem so minor. So when even to this day, like this morning, you know, I was telling the guys, I'm like, I have to come early in the morning because when I get here, I'm kind of still asleep. There's been times where I wake up on the mat. Like, I don't know how I got here. So I don't have an opportunity to, am I going to go today? How's the elbow feeling? Back's a little tight, but I think I'm okay. I just wake up and I'm here. If I had more time, maybe I'd talk myself out of it. So what I'm really excited about is competing, doing that, and then looking back at training, being like, dude, I'm so excited to go again. You know what I mean? Like, the nerves just will be completely gone at that point. Yeah.
It's so weird. Yeah. When you're training for something, it changes everything about the training, and the training gets sideways and gets weird for a little while. And then there's also like, you know, kind of a week before and a week after of like some kind of almost like, not deconditioning, but your training changes because the idea of like getting hurt is in your head. The idea of staying safe is always there, but you know, you don't want to take any unnecessary risks. And the same thing was happening with me for the Boston Marathon. And you know, it's good to be conscious of these things, but I think we can get like a little too in our heads about it. Like, you might be like, all right, you know, if Nsima's kicking the soccer ball around today, don't kick it because like you might, you know what I mean? Like, you get so petrified of every, you know, and maybe I'm not going to pick up Aurelius as much the last couple days because I don't want to wrench something weird, you know. All those thoughts kind of go through your head, but it is amazing when you're done with the actual competition, which was the thing that was the goal. There's so much relief and joy around just finishing the goddamn thing. And then you can go back to like normal training. And when you go back to normal training, what you realize is that now that you don't have like the burden of the actual competition, you can be a little bit more free flowing, and you can call on different partners in training and stuff and really mix things up again. Same thing happens in lifting, you know, powerlifting, bodybuilding, powerlifting, bench squat, deadlift. Like, that's all I'm doing for the last 2 months. Assistance exercises are going whoosh, right out the window as the competition gets super close. I just don't want any extra inflammation. And even the heavy lifts, like you might ditch some of the heavy lifts and only do small amounts of assistance exercises just so you're getting some blood. And
Nice and careful.
super careful, super slow, nothing explosive, just chill. And then you compete. And then, unfortunately, with most sports, there's like a week after that you got to kind of recalibrate, and then you start going down your path again. But, you know, I think, you know, for myself, you know, manifestation's been a huge thing. You know, writing those numbers on my mirror, that was huge. Being able to visualize myself in bodybuilding, in a bodybuilding contest, on a stage, posing in front of people, flexing in front of people in little skimpy ass underwear, was weird, you know? But I didn't have, you know, the more skilled you are, the less anxiety you're going to have. Like, I got pretty fucking lean for that. So I was like, you know, it's like, I don't know I don't pose super great. You know, I'm not a pro. I don't know how to flex the same way as maybe, you know, some of the higher level people or whatever, but I got really lean. I'm going to go show this off. Like, this is going to be fun. And when I power lifted, it was the same way. It's like, well, I got a fucking 800-pound bench. This is going to be sick. Like, the people watching are going to like shit themselves watching this. They're going to be like, what the fuck? Because the last guy that just went bench 633 and I'm opening with 804, they're going to be like, what the fuck? So, you know, but that's a skill set, you know, that's a particular skill that over time you develop. It takes a lot of time. And yes, it was like manifested, but I also simultaneously was working my face off to try to get to some of those lifts. When it comes to finances, or really any goal that anyone has, but I'll use finances as more direct correlation. And I mentioned earlier, you mentioned like, how does somebody even like start to think down this path? And I said, well, you got to do some figuring. And what I mean by that is you might have to do some like math, or you might have to, math is a great way of doing it, because, you know, if you're like, I want to do, you know, I want to do 10 jiu-jitsu tournaments in the next, you work it out, you know, to where you do it every other month for a couple of years, you know, and I want to be able to do 10 tournaments in the next 2 years or whatever the hell the number is. And, you know, you start to do some figuring, and then you start to think about, okay, well, how is that going to happen? Like, what am I going to do? And why do I want to do that? Like, does that even make any sense? You know, so then you talk to your friends and you say, hey, here's what, and they're like, it doesn't really work that way. Because you're thinking like, if I do tournament, I'll just get better. And they might have something different for you to, you know, they might say, well, here's what we've seen, you know, with a lot of other guys in class. You only need to compete like 2-3 times a year, and that should be good in the beginning. And then as you go up in belts, then maybe you compete more often, because maybe you want to do Pan Am and Worlds and those kinds of things. When it comes to finances, you know, my jump off point wasn't half bad. I was already making a little bit of money. And so I just was thinking about this like millionaire thing. Like, you know, what's it mean, like, to be a millionaire? And I didn't even know what it meant. Like, does it, and you won't even think about any of these things until you get close to it. But you're like, is a millionaire someone that has $1 million in the bank? Or is a millionaire someone that made $1 million? Or, you know, because like the company made $1 million well before I ever saw any of that. So I just started thinking about like $1 million, like, you know, 7 figures. I'm like, man, $1 million, that seems like kind of a lot. And then I remember, you know, I'm really big into like quotes. And Henry Ford, he says that there's no task that's too great when it's broken down into smaller pieces, smaller parts. The guy that created the assembly line. And that is an amazing thing to think about. So you can get yourself scared and worried about some big goal or task that you have. But if you break it down into smaller parts, it doesn't really sound that bad. So I'm like, okay, well, what does it take to make $1 million? What does that really mean? Like, how much do you need to make a month? You know, how much do you need to make, you know, and what do I make now kind of in accordance to that? And I was just jumbling around some numbers, and I'm like, well, I was like, I don't even really know my own numbers. So I'm like, let me simplify this even more. And I was like, how much money do you need to make in a day to be a millionaire? And the number is $27.50. And I put that in my phone. I wrote it down on a piece of paper. And I was on the phone with Kelly Starrett one day. And Kelly is a longtime friend and somebody I don't go around trying to share information like this with just any old person. But you know, he was on par with his business at the time. And so we would kind of openly share, like, we were like, hey, you make $1 million yet? We kind of joke about it at first. And then we were kind of like, well, yeah, like, things are going good. Like, yeah, who knows? Maybe this will be the year or whatever. And then I remember talking to him one day, and I was like, hey, you know what? The number's $27.50. He's like, what's $27.50? I was like, it takes $2,750 times 365 for you to make over $1 million. And he's like, all right. He's like, it's on. He's like, let's go make $1 million. And we weren't trying to like race each other or anything like that. But that's kind of where it started. Like a lot of this manifestation stuff, it started for me with lifting. And then I just was like, well, let's just run the same play. My football coach used to say, let's run the same play. And when that same play doesn't work, we're going to run it to the other side. You know? We're going to do this like 156 blast or whatever the hell it was, 142 blast. We'll just run this to the right side. And then as soon as that doesn't work, we'll do 143 blast. You know, it's like, whoa, we really switched things up. When you have something that works, you keep going to it. And so for us with Slingshot, you know, we had products that worked. We had things that were working well for us. And it was a matter of, you know, setting that kind of manifestation. All right, you said you want to make $27.50. Where's the work? You know, what are you doing? Like, you can't just have an invention and then sit back. So you have to do the work. In school, when it came to math, they would also say, you know, show me your work. And you're like, who fuck cares about the work? I got the answer.
Because you looked in the back of the book.
Yeah, because you totally cheated. But they always wanted to see your work. And when it comes to training, when it comes to bodybuilding or powerlifting, there's just like a certain amount of work to reach certain levels of strength. There's a certain amount of work associated with having a certain level of hypertrophy. There's a certain amount of time and a certain amount of work that is associated with being a black belt in jiu-jitsu. It doesn't matter how good or athletic you were previously. There's still going to be like X amount of time, no matter how awesome you are at anything. You could accelerate faster than some people. And same thing with wealth. But there's still going to be like this body of work, this time period that's just going to, things are just going to take time. And so that 2750, it just made it exciting for me. And it was like, all right, well, put your overalls on and you're going to have to really, you're going to have to work quite a bit to be able to get there. And so it was a matter of innovating and creating other products. And, then we made like knee sleeves and a bunch of other stuff. And it ended up working out the way that it did.
Should the things that you manifest scare you?
I don't think they have to scare you, because, making $1 million wasn't really scary necessarily. I know what you're saying though. Should it be more like, should you be biting off more than you can chew kind of thing? No, I don't think so. I think that, again, I think your jump off point should be closer. I think it should be, I think sometimes things should be a little bit like no doubt. Like, yeah, man, because again, if you picture that you have it already, you're like, I got this. Like, yeah, okay, you got it. Like, you already have it. If you can, you should be able to, pretty confidently in most situations, I would say, be like, yeah, I'm gonna be able to get this. And I think another way that you get there is by, having standards, right? And then also having good interpretations of the expectations that you have for yourself. So when you go to do something, like for me, for the marathon, all my thoughts weren't positive the whole time. In the marathon, they were. But leading up to it, it was like, hey, what happens if you have a cramp? Cramp is like, can be pretty devastating. It can take people out sometimes, What if you have a really bad like rash on your foot? Or you have some chub rub going on or something like that. And then you just kind of walk yourself through that situation. Okay, well, I think if my foot really hurts and I'm only halfway, there's possibility like I might have to take an L because I don't want to like, be so quote unquote tough that I finished, but then I got 6 months recovering because something crazy happened to me. Right. So I think it's okay to like, walk yourself through those situations. I think what you're manifesting, it can be scary, but it doesn't have to be scary. And again, I think if you do your work, then what you're about to do, it shouldn't be crazy. It shouldn't feel like it's so out of reach. So for me to do a marathon was very, very, very much out of reach, but it kind of wasn't out of reach because I think I've done like I've done 3 half marathons now, and I also ran over 20 miles probably like 5 times in training. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, it's like if somebody asked you right now, could you go do a, jiu-jitsu match? You're like, yeah, of course I could. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could do it.
Yeah.
Like there's no doubt, right? Can you win a jiu-jitsu tournament? Jiu-jitsu is interesting because, you don't have any idea or basis of like who you're going to go against. But at least there's again, there's kind of like a category, which can help your white belt, particular ages and things like that. Mm-hmm. That can help a lot. So that you're not going against some guy who really is kind of more like a blue belt or something like that because he's been grappling forever.
Hey, Pat Roger family, shut your fucking mouth. No, not really, but kinda. You should keep your mouth shut when you're asleep. Now on the podcast, we've been talking about the importance of nasal breathing for years, and we've been talking about using mouth tape during your sleep for years, as it's going to help your sleep quality because you're going to be breathing through your nose. We had James Nestor, author of Why We Sleep. Actually, that was Matthew Walker, but James Nestor, author of Breathe. We had Patch McEwen. We've had so many people talk about the importance of taping your mouth and breathing through your nose when you sleep for your sleep quality, which helps your recovery, which helps every aspect of your health and fitness. So, hostage tape. If you want to get some of this to help you sleep better, and it also stays on your face if you're a bearded man, which is one of the big problems with mouth tape, head to hostagetape.com/power project. And there you can actually get the Power Project annual deal, which will give you a year's supply of hostage tape. 55 cents a day for tape pretty much. And you'll be able to save $150 along with getting 2 tins, a year's supply of tape, and a blindfold. That is going to be something that you want to get your hands on. Links in the description along with the podcast show notes. Shut your f***ing mouth.
Yeah. How do you manage expectations when you are trying to manifest something?
I think you have to, as you're manifesting something, I think you have to think about, you have to allow the bad to come in. You have to allow the shitty to come in. It doesn't have to always be like, I'm going to do this or I'm going to fucking die. It doesn't have to be do or die all the time. I know there's some people that have that personality, but I think that, and I don't knock that personality, but I think that it makes life, it makes managing life difficult because your expectations are high. And it doesn't make any sense to put your expectations through the roof when your skill set isn't there. So when your skill sets start to fill up a little bit more and they get closer, then of course you can raise your expectations. Of course they could be higher. I like to kind of think more so of standards rather than just like an expectation. Kind of expecting something to happen. Expecting that you're just going to like tap this guy out because you've been training hard is a high expectation. And the reason why I say that is like the other guy, you know, hopefully he's training hard too. Like you kind of hope for that. Like you want to get into you know, yeah, of course it'd be fucking great to like throw the guy around and fucking ragdoll him and have that be your first victory. But at the same time, you're going to feel cheated. Mm-hmm. Like I know you're going to feel cheated. You're going to be like, yeah, man, like you're going to like look for someone to pick out of the crowd to like roll with, you know, cause you're going to be like, oh man, I
worked too hard for it to be that easy.
Yeah. And it's cool. It's cool that you won and everything, but like, it'll be more cool if you like roll with the guy and, you know, you get into something to get in a little bit deeper, but those expectations are tough. I personally, you know, just keep my expectations really low. I didn't have any for the Boston Marathon other than just to run it. I'm just going to go and I'm just going to run it. You already ran 20 plus miles in training a couple times. I think I ran 23 miles in training. A couple people told me, they're like, most people, you know, they furthest they'll run is like 20 miles. And so you kind of already did a marathon, just cut it a little bit short, on one particular day. And my expectations have been like that for everything. I like even like 1,000-pound squat. Like if I wasn't expecting to squat 1,000 pounds. I was training to squat 1,000 pounds, and my training ended up being strong enough and heavy enough for the byproduct to be 1,000-pound squat. So that by the time I got to that, it was actually pretty easy. And I don't think that it always has to end that way, though. It doesn't always have to be like you just did it fairly easy. However, that's the way that you're going to be able to get through it the easiest and have it have the least amount of damage on you is if your capacity is greater. So if you're going to run a marathon or half marathon, it'd be great if you had a capacity to run further than just that. And with the training that you do and the training a lot of people do for jiu-jitsu, for this, you do one match, right?
So it's going to be at least 2. Yeah,
oh, nice.
Yeah, at least 2. And then, depending on how big the bracket is, it could be more.
That's even better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not a one and done. So, yeah.
I think that's even less nerve-wracking in some ways. I think that's really neat. The thing you'll have to manage is the roller coaster, you know? roller coaster, the different emotions. But it sounds to me like whenever I've heard Nsima talk about it or ever seen him, it's fast. It's like
can be, yeah.
12 minutes later, 15 minutes later, it's like,
yeah.
Or there's texts you were sending me about Charlie and stuff. It's like, seemed like it's pretty quick.
Yeah, like I said, it can be. I've had friends that are they call it a bullpen. It's like where the kind of the next wave of competitors are getting ready to hit the mat, and it's like they'll be stuck there for like 20 minutes. It's like, dang, like I thought we were ready to go, because right, you hear it. They'll call it out on like the announcer will say some sort of identifier saying like, yep, it's our turn to go, get lined up because it's almost go time. And then it's like, damn, we've been here a while. It's like, well, because the other matches haven't finished. This last event that I was at, which I wanted to be there because, again, I'm like, I'm going to compete here in 8 weeks. I want to get familiar. Like, how do I even get here? Where do my friends park? Because the last time I came, I didn't know where to park. Like, all these things, like, so anyways, at this one, they were like, okay, time to go line up at the bullpen. And so my buddy was like, yeah, so that's when I knew I had, okay, it's almost go time. Let me have a protein bar or something. As he's reaching for it, they're like, hey, you're up. Like, oh shit. Like, all right. And so like that threw him off a little bit. He ended up winning the whole thing.
Damn.
But it can be fast and sometimes it can be slow. And so these are things that I'm glad that I have seen them experience, because then now when I go, I understand like it can be fast, or you might have to take a pillow and take a nap.
Yeah, you might have to wait a while in between.
Yeah.
I think that's dope. Yeah, I think, again, just trying to manage, that was the thing too, like with competing in powerlifting, you get 3 attempts. And so, I might have had a goal to do certain things. I mean, I remember coaching one guy, we had another guy that squatted 1,000 pounds, and the goal for a long time was 1,000 pounds. And by the time we got him to be strong enough for 1,000 pounds, he was way stronger than that. He was quite a bit stronger. So 1,000 pounds was his second attempt squat, but he squatted 1,000. He was so happy with it that 1,030 or whatever, like just like completely like cut him in half. And and we talked about it in training a lot. We're like, dude, you basically squatted 1,000 already in training, and we got more in the tank. So after the 1,003, we can't be, we need that number. So at the end of the meet, when you do your deadlift, that you end up with the total that we were trying to piece together. So yeah, you still have to be ready. I think what's going to happen on game day for you is that, you're going to have friends that are like, oh, just try to enjoy it and look at the crowd. And like, people tell you all different kinds of things. But you're going to be so honed in and focused on what it is you're doing. I don't even think you're really going to, you get a little nervous here and there, but the nerves that you feel now when you think about it are way higher than what's going to happen when you get there. When you get there, you're going to be like, oh, this is a bunch of mats, bunch of guys and geese, and and of course you might see some guys that are fast or explosive or strong or something. But like for the most part, you'll be pretty relaxed. You're not going to see anything. You're just going to probably just go in there and have some really good rolls, and you're not going to be able. You're gonna, when you're done, you're gonna be like, man, I wish I would have looked up a little bit. Wish I would have like saw the crowd, or but you can't. Not that you can't, but it's very difficult to do any of that until your skill set is higher. When your skill set's higher, you can be like, I've been here before. Okay, this is cool. I'm gonna go. Say what's up to my dad or whatever. But yeah, it's when you're just starting out, it's like your head's down. You're like fucking hunker down and focused.
Yeah, my buddy, he's a brown belt. He's the one that won recently, and he's just out there having a good old time. But he's a competitor. He competed Saturday and then he competed Sunday, like at 2 different organizations, and he won them both. So congrats to Chris Robertson. You're crushing it right now. But what I was going to ask you is, do you think there's a detriment, or should somebody have like a singular focus on what they're really trying to build, or can they have multiple things that they're trying to manifest at the same time?
Yeah, I think you could manifest multiple things at the same time. I think normally if you're to manifest one thing, it will change so many other things that it'd probably be your best bet to just hone in on the one thing. But I think you could, look at other things. I don't think there's anything wrong with like a multiple set of goals. When I would compete in powerlifting, It'd be like, I want to really hit this squat, but if I don't, I'll have to make up for it on the bench. I'll have to bench this. This is kind of the number I want to be able to bench, but if I don't bench that, then I hope I'm able to pull. Then I'll have to hit a bigger deadlift, which the deadlift wasn't my strong thing. So I tried to set myself up with enough at the end, but having like multiple goals going into something, or trying to manifest. Maybe it's not manifesting multiple things. Maybe it's just manifesting stuff on different levels. You know, like I want to be a millionaire one day. It's like, okay, cool. How about you become a thousandaire first? You know, in 2750, you and I have done this math before. You know, I think if you just knock off a zero, and you got, or I'm sorry, it's still 27. It's what, $275
I
a
forgot
day
what it
for
was.
$100,000, right? Is that right?
Something like that.
Let me see if I can do the math real quick here.
Carry the one. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, move the decimal over.
Right?
I don't know, man.
275 times 365. Yeah, it puts you over $100,000. So you make two. You know, so you can manifest maybe stuff on some different levels. You know, you can kind of think like that's my longer goal. You know, and I think that manifestation and goals can kind of go hand in hand a little bit. For me, I don't love the idea of goals all the time, just because. So like I just got done with the Boston Marathon, and people are like, what's next? What's next? You know, and what's next is just always the same thing. It's always go back to training and
eating pizza.
Yeah, just go back to eating pizza. Go right back to training and let things kind of happen. Let them happen, you know, more naturally. And as we started off the show with talking about in the very beginning, is you already have it. And for you to compete in this competition that you have coming up, your wife's not going to love you any less, regardless of the outcome of that competition, because one person's able to manifest something a little faster than another, because I've been able to manifest building up some money and building up a career, doesn't mean that my wife exponentially loves me more than other people that are listening to this show right now who haven't had the opportunity to have that manifestation happen quite yet. Things don't work that way. So you already have a lot of the stuff that you need. The people that you need in your life, most of them are already there. If they're not there, then start to write down, like, what are the steps? You know, what are you doing? What do you want to do? You want to be a pro bodybuilder? Well, you're going to have to find some people that bodybuild. You got to get around someone that you can't just have a coach remotely. Like, that kind of stuff is great, but it's not really going to work for a long period of time. It's not going to work the way that you want it to. You want to do jujitsu, you're going to have to get around some jujitsu people. You want to go to the next level of jujitsu, then you might have to fucking drive somewhere, like Nsima does. Drives about 2 hours to get training partners that are appropriate, and that goes with any sport. You want to be a power lifter, you're going to have to get around power lifters. And that makes your manifestation stuff so much easier, because those other people are doing all the same thing and they're aligned with their goals. And when you see that over and over again, you're like, oh, that's how you do it. That's how, okay. You're like, shit, man, that's how the pros do it. That's how, like, a guy that really gives a fuck, that's how he does it. And you know what? I'm going to have to do something at least remotely similar. So I think one of the coolest things is that you get to kind of copy other people. There's other people that are successful already. You know, what does this guy do? What does that guy do? What does Eddie Bravo do? What did Hickson Gracie do? I mean, there's a documentary on Hickson Gracie. You can go check it out. Like, go watch some of these things and start to learn. There's so much stuff you can find on YouTube. And along the lines of manifestation, there's so much you can watch on YouTube about manifesting things. I really love the idea that you already have it. And one of the reasons why I'm obsessed with that concept and idea is because there's, in my opinion, one of the greatest attributes someone can have is that they don't seem like they have any desperation. They just seem like they are, what's that word? They're just good. Like they don't need anything from you. They don't want anything from you.
Sustained.
Sustained. There we go. From my boy John Cena. They're sustained. Yes, we could all use, like, you know, somebody wants to offer you a cup of coffee or whatever. Like, we can all use these like little things. It's great. It's also great to know that you don't necessarily need that. You're already good to go. So I think, in my opinion, that's some of what you want to try to build towards and for, because if you're sustained, then your expectations and all these different things, they start to they fade down a little bit. And you could still have your expectations for yourself be high. That's fine. If you want to, but you have to also consider that sometimes, no matter how high your expectations are, and no matter how hard you try, and the effort that you put in, you could have this master plan of exactly what it is that you want to do, and it could still blow up right in your face. I mean, think about the people that work at NASA. These are the smartest people that we can possibly assemble. Look at the people that work at SpaceX. These people get paid really, really well. And a SpaceX missile or something they launched the other day just blew up. And we've had rockets from NASA blow up and stuff before too. So you could have the plan, and it could be the most well-meaning plan ever made in the history of the world, but sometimes it doesn't work out. And that doesn't mean that your manifestation didn't work. It just means that it ain't quite time yet. And so you got to just go back. That is actually part of your journey, is that Jay Cutler lost to Mr. Olympia, I think 4 years in a row before he ever won. Like, to me, that's like a bigger story than him winning. That's fucking incredible. How did he do that? How did he lose to the same guy every year? How did he handle that? Oh, man, tough break, man. Well, you'll get him next year, Jay. You'll get him next year, Jay. You'll get him next year or the year after that, maybe. Maybe not. Maybe you won't ever get him. You got him.
Yeah, second place 4 years in a row or something like that, and then turning around and winning 4 times in a row.
Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah, dude, I love this topic, and I love manifesting things, and I wish I had kind of caught wind of it sooner, even though I was already doing that without knowing, because I've always been thinking about stuff like what we're doing today when I was a little kid, but like I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And some of the things that I wrote down for 2023 have already come to fruition, but one of them almost happened. So the goal was by the end of this year to get a Tesla. It didn't work out that way because my beater didn't quite make it. I still got an amazing car. And so like, even though I kind of like, I missed the mark a little bit, I still ended up with something that I can't even explain how amazing it is to drive this car now. And it's like could that have happened without writing it down? Of course. But dude, I did write it down and it did happen. So it's like, I don't know, man. It's just, there's so many, like, people talk about leaving money on the table. You're leaving a lot more on the table if you're not doing this. That's all I got, man. Anything from you?
Yeah, just kind of on a last note, I have people that will say all the time, like, hey, man, did you ever envision this? Do you ever think, you never thought this was going to happen? You never thought that was going to, I'm always just like, yeah, I did. I saw it so long ago that the story's boring to me already. The moment that I created the slingshot, for some reason, it came to me, some of the exact amounts of money that I was going to make with it. And I don't know why. I don't know how. I don't know what happened there. But I think just being around fitness for as long as I've been and just seeing the interest in the style of lifting that I was doing at the time and just kind of matching some of that up with some of the other things I thought of. But same thing with running. Like, yeah, I guess if you asked me 20 years ago if I ever really envisioned myself running, but if you ask me anything now, then I have no choice but to say, I'm not sure. Mark, you think you would ever become a black belt in jiu-jitsu? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, it would have to be like a handed out Cracker Jack box black belt that they give to the guy who's 1,000 years old that can't move anymore. But You never know.
It's something.
Yeah. You never know. And so I don't think anyone, try your best not to count yourself out. I'm still always working on my language of, I still have self-doubt. I still have negative thought. I think without self-doubt, then without self-doubt, you don't have the opposite of that, which is self-confidence. Like you need the two to be there. And self-doubt is something that can be protective. It's there for a reason sometimes. Maybe you shouldn't, jump up on that picnic table at that barbecue because it's not a good idea because you haven't done it in a long time. I mean, there are reasons why there is a little bit of doubt lingering in there. But with a lot of the goals and a lot of the things that you want to do, it's so much fun to kind of make some of these things up and write them down. Think about you grab a pen and a piece of paper and you just write down, I want to buy a brand new car, period. You don't have to set a time or anything. You just that's just like one day you want to be able to go to the dealership and buy a brand new car. That's cool. You could set whatever, you get to make it up. Like, what is that thing that you want to go and be able to do? You want to be able to do it with everything that you got. And if you, start to build some confidence in yourself by taking the hard road most of the time, taking the road less traveled, doing the things that take time, all the things that you really, truly admire. The more that we admire something, usually the longer it took someone to do it. The more spectacular somebody is, the more that it took for them to be able to put these things together. You look at like Michael Jordan or someone like that. We don't love Michael Jordan because he won one championship, although that's unbelievable, winning one championship. He didn't win one scoring title. He won multiple scoring titles. He won multiple championships. Same thing with Shaq, Kobe. I mean, the list goes on of the people the people that we're going to admire the most are the people that stick to the story of being dedicated to these things because they probably put something forward somewhere in their past where like, oh, fuck. Like I put that in my, Kobe wanted to be the greatest to ever do it. And so he did his best. He did everything he could to be in that category. Now, is he there or not? I mean, that's up for basketball people to decide. But it seemed like that motherfucker did everything that he could to be mentioned in that category.
Absolutely.
Take us on out of here, Andrew.
Alrighty. Thank you, everybody, for checking out this edition of Saturday School. Drop those comments down below. Let us know what you guys think about today's class session. And let us know if you guys are going to manifest anything or if you currently are manifesting things. All that good stuff. Follow the podcast at MB Power Project all over the place. Oh, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button on the way out. My Instagram is at I am Andrew Z. Mark Bale, where are you at?
I got these little like Gripzilla things over here. They're pretty neat.
Those are nice. They look cool too.
Yeah, you guys can check it out on Instagram if you're interested. Anybody that loves like grip stuff. I know some people are completely obsessed with it. He's got some other thing that I want to get that you can like twist and break up and stuff. It looks pretty neat. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.